Today I'm going to teach you how to make this Christmas lantern wreath step by step. Welcome to Stillwater's Wreath Designs. Come on in. Hello, my wreath making friends. Come on in. How are you today? We are going to make a Christmas lantern wreath today on a pine base. For those of you that are new to the Stillwater's channel, we're so happy to have you. Stillwater's Wreath Designs is all about front door wreath and door swag tutorials. We upload new tutorials every single week, so if you like that sort of thing, I would love for you to hit that subscribe button and click your bell notification so that you can create with us every single week. And for my friends that have been with me for a while, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for coming back. I will leave the full materials and supplies list needed to make this beauty in the description of this video below so that you can recreate it if you'd like to do so. And of course, this exact wreath that we're making on today's tutorial will be available for purchase. I'll leave a link below in the description of this video for that as well. Guys, we're going to make today's wreath on a 24-inch pine base. And as you can see, I've been fluffing out these pine ties while we've been chatting this morning. You can grab a pine base at this time of year basically from anywhere: Walmart, Hobby Lobby, Michael's, Amazon, online wreath making retailers, really a variety of places. Doesn't matter where you get it. Whether it's online or in a store, they always need some fluffing. So all I'm doing is waking up these pine ties, standing them to attention, and getting a good fluff. Kind of like what you would do for your Christmas tree at the beginning of the season. Go ahead and plug in your hot glue gun so that that can be heating up while we start to work on our base here. How is everybody today? What's going on? I'm really excited to create this wreath, guys. This is something a little bit new for the channel, a little bit bougie. It's going to be going into my Etsy shop. I actually had a customer request for something similar to this, so I'm going to make a few for the Christmas season. That's right around the corner. All right, guys, I think I've got this nice and fluffed out. And this is a round 24-inch wreath frame. And what I want to do is give this guy a little bit of a squish. Let me show you what it looks like on the back. So the pine wreath base, this came from Hobby Lobby. It's actually got 2 layers, if the camera is capturing that, and then several support bars. So it's a heavy duty pine base, and I'm going to flip it over like I've done here and just kind of give it a squish. This is a pretty heavy duty base. So as you can see, I've taken our round pine base and just gave it a slight oval shape. All right, and here's what we're working with. So let me tell you, look guys, what we're going to add into this. So this is, how tall is this guy? This is a lantern that actually lights up. I grabbed these from Amazon. It's called a Christmas lantern. It came in a 2-pack and it requires 3 AAA batteries. So the cool thing is, you know, our customers can hang this on our front door, and how warm and inviting and magical will that look hanging on our door with this candle flickering at night. So first things first, we need to get this guy nestled in here. So I want it to hang just like this. It's somewhat heavy, not terribly heavy. I want it to nestle a bit, but yet we still need to be able to reach this battery area so that if we need to reload batteries, we can. And we can also reach that on and off switch. It looks the same basically all the way around. And we've got this nice hook at the top that we're actually going to use to anchor this lantern down into our wreath. So I'm actually going to use a floral wire stem to anchor this guy down. I'm just going to fold it into a V. Run that guy right through the top of our ring here and give it a twist just to keep that guy secure. I'm going to stand this up, and remember there's 2 rings, and I really want this to go around both of those rings because it's somewhat heavy, and I want it to rest nicely in our wreath base. And here you can see I've wrapped that floral wire stem around both rings, and I'm going to give it 4 or 5 tight twists to make sure that really doesn't go anywhere. And then I'm going to just take my small snips and trim off that excess bit of floral wire stem. And I'm going to take my needle nose pliers and just curl that back into the wreath. That way, if we or our customer grab this right here, we're not getting poked. So we'll flip this guy back over. How stinking cute is that going to be at night when it's lit up? So let me scoot this off to the side, and I want to show you the ribbon that we're going to be using on this wreath. I've grabbed 4 different types. Pretty sure we'll be using them all. And of course, guys, like always, you know, I'll just say use any coordination of ribbon that you would like. Just make sure that they are all wired so they maintain their shape nicely for you. I've got a 1.5 inch velvet black, a 2.5 inch black and red plaid with these cute white glitter snowflakes, a 2.5 inch solid red velvet, and a new 4 inch glitter black and white houndstooth from Regency. I'm so excited to use that. I typically don't use ribbon that wide, but I thought it would be really complimentary to our big bougie lantern. So let me just show you this ribbon from Regency. It is so stinking cute. Not sure if the camera is capturing this or not, but it's a glittery, thick canvas, black and white check. So I think it's going to be adorable for what I have envisioned. So let me tell you what I have up my sleeve here, guys. I want to add a giant ribbon tail down the right-hand side with the 4.5 inch. And so what I'm going to do, I'm not going to even cut the piece off because I'm not sure how long I'm going to need it to be. So I'm just going to let it unroll beside me. And I want to come down, 4 to 5 inches, pretty side up, of course. And I'm going to pinch and gather that right in the middle. And so we've got this little bit of a tail here. And I'm going to come up, if this were a clock, and here is noon, I'm going to come up to 1 o'clock and find 2 neighboring pine ties. And I'm going to twist them together right around that ribbon, like so, to anchor this guy down, just like that. And now I want to create a bump of ribbon and then anchor it down again around 5 o'clock. So I don't want it super taut like that, but you don't want it so floppy that it's coming off to the side either. So just give it a little bit of a give, and then come down to about, somewhere between 4 and 5. Find 2 neighboring pine ties, just like what we did at the top, closer towards the outside of your wreath. And use those pine ties to anchor this guy down, just like that. So we've just given ourselves this super pretty tail. And now we'll come out, just to where the wreath pine ties end and cut off our ribbon. All right, next up, let's add our 2.5 inch black and red check with the iridescent snowflakes. And again, I'm not going to cut it off. I'm going to add it right on top of where we added our 4 inch ribbon. I'm going to leave a little bit shorter of a tail. I'm going to pinch and pleat that in the middle. I'm going to come here to my ties And I'm going to twist those right on top, just like so. And of course, give that a couple of tight twists so that our ribbon doesn't go anywhere. Just like that. And we're going to run that right on top of that 4-inch ribbon, so it lays not too tightly, just a gentle lay here. And then we'll pinch and pleat and place that right on top using those same ties. How stinking cute is that, guys? And you can move those pine ties underneath so that your ribbon is laying the way that you want it to. And we're going to cut this ribbon about 1 inch or so shorter than that 4-inch ribbon. So I've swapped out that ribbon for a 1.5-inch wide glitter ribbon. We're going to make just a couple of single loop tails to add into both of those top and bottom areas. So I'm going to cut 2 strips of the 1.5-inch red at 16 inches in length. Once I've measured the first one, I can just use it as the guide. And it doesn't have to be perfect, guys. Nobody's going to be measuring your ribbon, I promise you that. And then I've cut 2 14-inch strips of the 1.5-inch black velvet. And we're going to dovetail those ends. So I'm going to dovetail both pieces at the same time, so I've got them layered on top of one another. And to dovetail, you then fold your ribbon in half, and on the folded side, not the open side, you're going to come down about 1 inch to 1.25 inches and cut up diagonally to the corner. And then when you open them, you've got that pretty dovetail at the end of your ribbon. So we're going to do that to all 4 cuts of this 1.5-inch ribbon. And now we're going to lay our longer red piece out and then place our black piece right on top. So essentially it's centered on the ribbon with the same distance at each end. And then what I want you to do is to basically fold it in half, make a loop. Okay, so we've just folded it in half. We want that loop to be about, 2 inches or so in width. And then I'm going to just pinch and pleat that top layer under my thumb and flip it like so. And then pinch and pleat that top layer once I've turned it around. And what that does, guys, is just put that pretty side out for both of our tails. And then we're going to add it in to both our lower and upper set of pine ties. So you want that loop to be pointing towards the center and those tails pointing out. And then you can pull apart those loops. So essentially you just made like a little bow. You've got 1 loop of each color and 4 tails. I'm going to go ahead and scoot those guys back a little bit before I fluff them and dovetail the ends of my 2.5 and 4.5 inch ribbon. I should have done that before I added my loopy tails. Oh well, that's okay. There we go. So I'm just going to fluff out or make pretty all of these tails. Just like that. How stinking cute. So we've got these pretty layers of ribbon. They are adorable. Let's do the same thing to the other end. This time I'll be smart and dovetail my wider ribbons first. So they're just going in all the directions. Just feel like that gives it a great deal of movement. How stinking cute is that, guys? All right, so we've got the first side of tails and loops finished. We're actually going to make a bow to add to the left-hand side, but we're going to do something unique with our bow. So I want long flowing tails to come down and then shorter flowing tails to go up. So when we make our bow, we're going to make 2 loops of each color, but 2 very different lengths of tails, one very long to come down and one very short to go up. So let me set this aside and we'll work on our bow. Go ahead and have all of your ribbons that you've chosen handy, as well as a good pair of scissors and a coordinating colored pipe cleaner. So I've chosen to grab just a standard 12-inch pipe cleaner to secure my bow. You could also use a zip tie or some floral wire if that's your preference. I'm going to fold my pipe cleaner into a loose V so that it's ready to wrap around my bow, and just set this guy off to the side. We're going to use all 4 ribbon types here, guys, and just 2 loops and 2 tails of each. What I like to share with you is that when you're making your bows, always make your tails a tad bit longer than what you anticipate needing, because you can always, trim down those tails if you need to, but you can't add extra ribbon on. So I'm going to make an 11-inch tail with my black and white 4-inch checked. I'm going to pinch and pleat that at the 12-inch mark. Roll out some extra ribbon here. Then I'm going to twist that, because we always want that ribbon to be pretty side out. And I'm going to make, probably 5-inch loops. So I'm going to pinch and pleat here. Let's see if that's 5 inches. I don't want to tell you wrong. Yep, it's just about 5 1/4. Then I'm going to twist underneath my thumb. I'm going to make another 5-inch loop, like so. And I'll pinch and pleat. As you can see, my left hand is my holding hand, and my right hand is my working hand. You can tell that your loops are essentially the same height by pulling them up and marrying them together. And then I want my upper tail to be far shorter than my lower tail. So I'm going to cut it about 2 inches above where my loop ended. And move on to our next ribbon. I'm just pulling out some ribbon, so I've got some excess to work with. And I'll use my previous ribbon as kind of a guide. And again, guys, not looking for perfection. Nobody's going to be measuring anything. Just like before, 2 loops and 2 tails. I'm going to make these loops, probably 1 inch or so, maybe 3/4 of an inch shorter than the previous loops, just approximately. Giving that a twist underneath my finger. I'm going to make another smaller loop and marry them up to make sure they're the right size, and they are. And I'll cut this ribbon about 1 inch or 2 shorter than the previous. And now we'll set that off to the side. I'm going to add my red because I don't have much of my black left. Again, I'm going to measure my tails based on my previous ribbon, and I'm not looking for perfection. Twisting underneath my thumb in my holding hand, making those loops even smaller still than the previous by about 1 inch or so on each side. We'll make sure they're the same length by marrying them up. And then I'm going to cut this ribbon tail. It's probably an 8-inch tail or so. And I've just got this little bitty 12-inch piece of black left. So I'm going to lay it right in the middle of my hand, just kind of eyeballing because I'm working with my leftover bit. And I'm going to make a single 1-inch loop, which will become what I call a button when we're done. So now that the ribbon stack is in my hand, I'm going to grab that pipe cleaner that I formed into a V earlier and place that right around that bow stack. Flip that guy upside down and give it 3 or 4 super duper tight twists. Just like so. And remember, we've got one set of tails that's a bit longer than the other. So when I bring my wreath base back in, I want the longer tails pointing down and those shorter tails pointing up. I'm going to take my pipe cleaner. I'm going to come into my wreath and I want to add that down right into the base. Just scooch those pine ties as you need at approximately 10 o'clock. And I'm just going to wrap them around that upper metal ring of my wreath. So I've attached that guy down in. It's nice and secure. We're going to flip this wreath upside down and just kind of separate these tails and loops. And all I'm doing here, guys, is pulling them apart. So basically I'm just pulling everything into an X pattern with my 4.5 inch and my 2.5 inch ribbon loops. I'm going to leave that red right smack in the center. So I'm just fluffing it up a little bit. And then this black center is what I call a button. It's just a single loop that serves as a cute little focal point for the center of your ribbon. So when I fluff out bows, guys, if you're new to my channel, I always say that the first fluff is what I call the rough fluff. So I basically just want to see where my loops and tails are laying and get an idea of how it's all flowing. And then after we've added all of our embellishments back in, we'll come in for a final fluff. I am going to go ahead and dovetail the ends of all of my ribbon tails. And remember, you can always take more off, but you can't put it back on once you've cut it. So cut off less than what you think you're going to want to cut. So I'm going to actually dovetail the 4-inch ribbon and the 2.5-inch ribbon tails. My red glitter, I'm going to angle and leave long because I'm going to curl it. I'm going to angle trim my black. It's too short to curl, but velvet ribbon doesn't hold its shape well if you dovetail it. So I don't like to dovetail velvety ribbons, but that's my choice, guys. You can certainly do so if you want to. Now I'm going to dovetail the 4-inch and the 2.5-inch on this lower level. So if you've never curled ribbon, let me show you my little trick here. This is a cardboard tube insert that came out of a used up roll of 10-inch deco mesh, and it is perfect for curling ribbon. All you do, guys, is take your tube, kind of like a curling iron, lay your ribbon on the tube, and just curl, curl, curl all the way to the center of your bow. And release. I'll do the same thing for the upper tail. And release. You've got a nice little springy curl. So stinking cute. So now it's time to add in some embellishments. All right, guys, so let me show you what I've grabbed for embellishments. I'm not sure exactly what we're going to use yet, so we'll just see where our creativity takes us. I've got a handful of heavily frosted pine picks. I've grabbed a couple of unfrosted pine picks, a few small sprays of lightly frosted winter berries, a much more robust spray of these heavily frosted winter berries with some nice little greenery. And then I have one pick that's got some different types of winter greenery, some more frosted berries, and a pine cone. So let me tell you how I add embellishments in to my wreath bases, guys. I always, especially when I'm using lots of different types of embellishments, I kind of build from the underneath forward. So I use the simpler, what I would call filler embellishments first, and then I come back in with the more statement pieces. So I've grabbed my heavy duty and my light duty wire snips to trim these guys down as we need to. I'll leave links for my favorite tools below in the description of this video as well, if you'd like to grab some. All right, let's dive in. So just like wreaths, friends, when you're adding embellishments in, you nearly always need to fluff them out. So I'm going to start with my flocked pine ties here and fluff them a little bit. And if you've not worked with flocked ties, guys, they're beautiful, but they are messy. So be prepared for your wreath to look like it's got some dander that you'll have to blow off once you're finished. And I think I'm actually going to trim this guy down instead of leaving this as one whole piece. You can see here that there are actually 3 pieces of this stem. So I'm going to break this down into 3 pieces. And I like to dry place things first. That's just a personal preference. And then I come back in with my glue. You can certainly do it how you wish. And once you're happy with that placement, just run about 1 inch or so, maybe 2, depending on the depth of your embellishment, of glue on the back side of that spine. And put it back in its home. All right, guys, the next thing I'm going to add are some of these winter ferns. I actually grabbed these from Amazon. They are really thin, almost wispy, and they're great for some backdrop filler. So they've got, they're about, just the greenery piece is about 9 inches. Super, super thin, as you can see. The stem is pretty long. That's a good 3 or 4 inches long, and we only need those stems to be, oh, probably 2 inches at best, probably even just 1.5 inches. So I'm going to dry place some of these and sprinkle them throughout our wreath. We'll see how many we use. So I'm kind of placing them on that back underneath side, if you can see here, if the camera's capturing that. And those stems, they're about 2 inches in length. And I like the way they look. They give a really pretty, dainty Christmas vibe. They give some extra width and diameter to our wreath, but they don't really take away from the beauty of all of our other pieces, which is what I love about these Christmas winter fern pieces. So it looks like I've got about 7 of them sprinkled around on that lower side of our wreath. I'm happy with that placement. As you can see, they stick out, between 4 and 5 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and go back through and glue them in. Absolutely adorable. Right, so next up in our embellishment edition is going to be our frosted winter berries. And obviously, guys, these are super long. So we're going to trim them down to size. I'm probably going to leave each piece probably 7 to 8 inches in length. So I'll just trim them down right where those berries kind of end, and then give them 1 inch of stem to grab. So I'm going to trim down a handful and we'll start dry placing those. All right, guys, I've got all of my winter berries dry placed into the wreath. So just like before, I'm going to go right around the wreath and get them hot glued in. And that is it, you guys. This beauty is finished. I sure hope you enjoyed creating this with me today. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up. It really helps my little channel to grow. Thanks, friends. Happy crafting.